Yeah, I think it's a wide range. I mean, something as simple as seeing people sit on a patio space on a street. And I think the excitement of seeing people gather makes you believe that that restaurant is good and that, hey, if the patio is full, maybe there's something really amazing here that I need to go have dinner at this restaurant. So it could be small as an outdoor patio, it could be a small pocket park. I think just making sure that whether it's the municipality, the real estate developer, or a restaurant, creates those spaces for people to gather, I think is just important as it is.
Welcome to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is J. Darren Gross. This is a podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today's interview is sponsored by Building Insurance and Risk. When you invest in real estate, it pays to work with a real estate investor protection specialist to protect yourself and your investment from catastrophic loss. The experts at Building Insurance and Risk focus on real estate investor protection. They provide you with multiple insurance coverage offers and a side-by-side coverage comparison. To learn more, go to buildinginsurancerisk.com. Today, my guest is Edie Weintraub. Edie Weintraub is the visionary founder of Terra Alma, a boutique real estate advisory dedicated to shaping walkable community-centered spaces and fostering local connections. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Edie Weintraub about creating vibrant hubs where people gather. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CREPN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how attractive our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Edie Weintraub. Welcome to CREPN Radio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm delighted to have you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. But before we get started, if you could take just a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. So I am blessed to be in the world of commercial real estate. I think it's one of those industries that is not evident to folks in high school or even in college that it exists. Most people think real estate and they think of buying and selling homes. And while I did get my license for that and started down that path, I quickly realized that I did not like the emotional aspect of it. I really wanted to be in something that was a little bit more business minded. So I met with a couple of folks in industrial, office, and retail, and quickly decided that with 85% of all consumer purchases made by women, retail was definitely my jam. So I leveraged my relationships with folks in food and beverage. And as I was a promoter in the nightclub industry, I brought those connections in and have now been doing that in the Atlanta area for the last, just under 20 years. So it's a blessing to be able to work with both national brands, but also emerging businesses and see and foster their growth.
Awesome. Well, this is certainly a topic, creating vibrant hubs where people gather, that myself and I'm certain many are interested in. I'm based in Portland, Oregon. And this is something that Portland, I think, did very well pre-COVID, but now I'd say there's a struggle to make this happen. So let me ask you this: give me a kind of a definition, or how do you define like a vibrant hub that attracts people and they want to gather?
Absolutely. Well, I am very bullish on the 15-minute city. And even if we can make it a 10-minute city, even better. There is something magical about the structure of a city really anywhere in Europe that was designed pre-cars. And in fact, there's some communities in Europe that you drive through and you can't even get two cars, you can barely get one. And so I think there's something magical about people being out on the street and creating that sense of community, because like the show Cheers, you want to be where everybody knows your name, right? We human beings, we crave connections. And so to create a downtown that offers something for everyone, it can't be just age restricted. It can't be service restricted. It can't be really restricted at all. I think part of the beauty is the variety of uses, whether it's a barber shop or a men's clothing store or a butcher or a baker. Human beings crave connections and they should be around each other. I love computers. I love our phones. I love my car, but creating a vibrant space is really creating a shared experience with others.
Got it. So you mentioned cities, which I would think would be kind of like a more of a global planning state. Do you work with cities, or can you work with like an individual shop owner or space
All of the
um,
above.
operator?
We're
Okay.
all pieces of the puzzle that all need to come together. So just yesterday, I was at a conference for a group in Southeast Georgia, outside of Savannah, in a town called Statesboro. We had about 75 folks in downtown development authorities and economic development for a retail summit, a full day retail summit, where I was speaking on behalf of tenants. There was another gentleman speaking on behalf of landlords, and another group that does consulting with cities to help them with retail recruitment to those communities. And a lot of these communities range inside from 5,000 people to 25,000 people. Statesboro is home to a university, so you've got a young and group of talent that's there that hopefully falls in love with it and wants to stay, or they go to school and they move on, and hopefully they're proud to come back and share where they went to school. So it covers the gamut. We work with municipalities, we work with property owners, and we work with emerging tenants who, really are the lifeblood. If you look at any shopping center across the country, about 70% of the folks that are in those shopping centers are small business owners. And so helping those folks understand that the tools that I have that I share with my national brands are the same tools that I use to help them grow and scale their businesses.
Got it. So at a conference or when you meet with people, is there any resistance to creating a space where there's foot traffic and people?
I have never heard that there's any resistance. I
Whoa,
think
whoa,
some of
whoa.
the challenges would be, perhaps, in a college and university town, right? There's the folks that live there who've always lived there, while they want to foster and they see the talent and, growing young minds. Sometimes may not like the noise, right? Like, I think all 18 to 22-year-olds and even 22 to 26-year-olds like need a place to go and burn off steam. And so if it's not a entertainment complex where there's like bowling or movie theaters or cornhole, I mean, you don't necessarily need to spend a lot of money to have access to those things. And so whether that's something that's offered by the college or university, or if there's a local business in town. So I think the feedback would be just, what is that control, right? Like, what are the noise ordinances? How many people are gathering? Like, do they have hookah? Are they vaping, right? Like all these things that I think, always create a little bit of friction, but I think in a manner to help foster it in a safe manner that folks are going to do it, right? Just like cigarettes have been proven to be bad for you, but yet people are still opting in. So it's not like you're going to take them away. You might tax them more and make it more difficult, but you can't control everything. So I think if it's just in an environment that makes it enjoyable for people to gather, and knowing that you're catering to a variety of different age groups, I think it's really important to have a shared public space like a park that has a playground, but maybe also has trails around it where older folks in the community can bike or walk and, just see that life happening. I feel like sadly we're the loneliest we have ever been as a society. And while, everybody enjoys working from home, I think we do need just to be around others.
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely some agreement on this end right here. I definitely agree with you on that. Um, so as far as the different entities and people you work with, is there a key stakeholder that you find that is needed, or can any one of the different groups you've mentioned, can they be the instigator of wanting to create a space where people gather?
Yeah, I mean, I think it works on all sides. So, where I see the most benefit is in a public-private partnership, where perhaps a developer is coming in, they're building a new development, but they work with the municipality to purposely add in, shared utilities or shared common streets, or maybe there's a parking deck that they could be built next to City Hall, next to a library where it's used by the local community during the day. And then in the evening or for lunch, it has that flexibility for that parking deck to be used for the local restaurants that are walkable. So there's an opportunity for shared space there. And then maybe there's a shared green where there's just a space that's open for kids to run and dogs to walk and people to gather. So I think that's really the beauty of seeing that public-private partnership come together. But I've also seen amazing instances where perhaps in like downtown Charleston, for example, there's a vacant lot where a building was demolished. And during the pandemic, the restaurant that had a space next door said, "Hey, property owner, I don't necessarily have a patio or an outdoor space, but obviously would love to stay in business. Can we work something out where we clean, but also put some picnic tables out and we use this as our outdoor patio and activate it? And maybe there's a shared revenue model where we give you a percentage of our sales in order to use that space in the interim." But it created this space where people were gathering and getting together, where the business who was 100% inside conditioned space, and at the time people were not comfortable being in that closed environment, they were able to be outside, still enjoy the food from the restaurant, but that energy from the restaurant was able to also come outside and be expressed in their brand.
Got it. So when you think of shared space, kind of that you're trying to create the gathering space, do you typically think of it as an outdoor kind of a community space, or can it be an indoor space?
Yeah, I think more often than not, it leans towards outdoor just because, again, I think there is something so important about being out in nature and connecting to Mother Earth that I think we all need for just our well being. But it could be a shared interior space. I feel like, unfortunately, we went very big with our concert venues, and there is something very important about gathering over, whether it's the spoken word of poetry or storytelling, or maybe just a small like stage where people can gather, and whether it's background noise or people are sitting in chairs and watching the experience, whether again indoor or outdoor. I feel like we all need to have spaces both indoor and outdoor to have those shared experiences in.
Is there an ideal size that you find that works well? I mean, is it like a city block, or can it be in front of a couple of businesses, or does it need to be a park, or is there any kind of formula for that?
Yeah, I think it's a wide range. I mean, something as simple as seeing people sit on a patio space on a street. And I think the excitement of seeing people gather makes you believe that that restaurant is good, and that, hey, if the patio is full, maybe there's something really amazing here that I need to go have dinner at this restaurant. So it could be small as an outdoor patio, it could be a small pocket park. I think just making sure that whether it's the municipality, the real estate developer, or a restaurant, creates those spaces for people to gather, I think is just important as it is.
And you mentioned a pop-up. Is that, can you explain a little bit about what that is and how that
Absolutely.
works?
So we've worked with groups that have pop-up opportunities, whether it's food truck park that just pops up at a office complex on Friday for lunch, or a city brings them in for like Alive at 5 is one of the local communities. And on the third Thursday of every month, they shut down the public street and they open it up where people bike, they walk, the patio spills out onto the street. So it's just a once a month experience, but everyone looks forward to it, whether it's the kids or the adults. And, just to know that you have that shared safe street in order to gather in, people really look forward to it. And it's been a great way to bring a community together for them to get to know their neighbors. Because obviously, if you're there, the third Thursday of every month and you keep seeing the same people, or that you're telling people to come out and join you, it's a great opportunity for people to gather. So it doesn't have to be a permanent structure. In fact, I actually just consulted on a project where we were looking to do incremental retail, where the majority of homeowners that are buying homes today are not necessarily looking for that clubhouse, or they're looking for that shared pool. They want a local coffee shop that they can bike or walk to. And so in a recent project, we were able to create a small, just like a single lot where we said, hey, we'll put an Airstream here. We'll have a group come in and do coffee during the day, and maybe they turn to like charcuterie and cheese and light bites in the evening, maybe with some wine or some seltzer or whatnot. But it was a raised area where it was safe for kids to kind of gather. And again, it's maybe like half an acre. It doesn't need to be that big, but that's where we were using to kind of showcase like how that future 600 acres would be developed to allow that common gathering space for the community. So it could range as something as, again, a small patio up to, a couple acres where we can activate it for a chef's market or a pop-up vintage gathering.
It's interesting. You mentioned kind of initiate, like it sounded like you were working with a developer perhaps, or was it more of a city plan?
Yeah,
Or
master plans. I was working on behalf of a master plan community where they were looking to kind of, think through ways to evolve to make their community attractive to new home buyers. And they were bringing in, obviously, the big folks from a home builder perspective, but they were developing and preparing those lots for sale.
Got it. So that's like on the new end of trying to create a space. Like it sounds like you got a blank canvas there. What about like revitalizing, um, urban spaces? I'm thinking specifically of downtown Portland right now.
Yeah,
Um,
nothing gives me more joy, honestly, because you have the story of the existing structure that's there and a vacant space. There's so much to play off of, rather than trying to build something new is a lot more. I struggle a little bit, right? Because you're making something new, you have to create a story for it, versus something that's existing already has a story to maybe just have a new life in it. We've seen success in bringing in, the artist community and offering some spaces for galleries, right? Places for artists to pop up, to host an event. They're usually great at kind of creating that space for creativity. In fact, there's a group out of Florida called Zero Empty Spaces. And what they do is they come into a space, they pay just, I think, enough to like manage the space, but in bringing in artists, obviously the artists then are paying for their space within it, but they require that each of those artists have a kind of an office hours, right? Like as you're coming into the space, you're required to be there on, Tuesday between 4 and 8. And what they have found is if they see that art in action, those folks that are coming by, walking by what would have been a vacant space, are seeing the art in motion. In fact, there was a success story where there was a 5,000 square foot space and Zero Empty Spaces went into it. And I think they were there for maybe 6 months. This was a space that was vacant for over 5 years. And in the first 6 months, a gentleman walked into the space and he goes, oh, this space feels good. Like I see art in motion. There's just creativity. There's life in this space. I own a women's dress shop. I've passed the space, but not really even given it a second consideration, because it's just, if it's dark, the lights are off, or there's, signage on the wall that you can't see inside the space, there's nothing compelling for you to consider it. And so with the creativity of an artist being in residence in the space with art in motion, he saw it in a different light and he was able to come in and do a permanent lease on that space. And so the art group then moved on to another vacancy and was able to activate that for hopefully another story to be shared to that effect.
no, that's clever. A neat way to get some attention and attract eyeballs and foot traffic and that. I'm curious. You mentioned the arts. Um, is there a one element that's more magnetic? I mean, I think of like food, art, music, maybe
All of
some
the
sort of
above.
a holiday event. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is
Yeah,
there
and
a
even better if you can combine all of them.
yeah, sure. Sure. Now, in that though, have you, so obviously if you, I guess the trifecta would be you combine it all, and have it, like a kickoff, like, so you, like, coming up with the, shopping, season of, the holidays here, have some sort of a holiday bazaar, or, some sort of an event where it attracts people down, and that, but without, say you don't have a holiday, that's, on the horizon per se. I guess there's plenty of holidays. You can amplify anything you want. Um, is food, art, or is it just like you said, it works best if you can have it all?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a group that's in LA, New York, and Miami called Smorgasburg. And they're a chef's market. And depending on where they're located, they sometimes are open for the whole year. They're sometimes open for warmer months in New York specifically. And it's a chef's market. So they find emerging pop-up brands and they bring them in and they say, hey, bring your tents. Every Saturday and Sunday, we're going to pop up and we don't charge anything for you to come, but they aggregate an experience where, on most days they're bringing in anywhere from 6 to 8,000 people. So they do have music on site. Most often they've got, vintage records or vintage clothing or maybe a local, jewelry artist. So they are curating an experience that's just a pop up on Saturdays and Sundays. So I think things like that offer people the ability, and it's not to say that people are coming every single weekend, but they do a great job of curating vendors that have unique offerings that you're not going to find anywhere. And these are people that typically have full-time jobs during the week and are in the process of cultivating their brand to perhaps launch that into something else, or maybe they just like making some unique donuts, and this is just their hobby to do on the side, and they don't really see it going anywhere, but they have a space to express their art.
Yeah, that's good. W- Um, how do you go about promoting the event, or the happening, or is there any need to, or is it just an organic happening?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at it from a collective standpoint, and everybody, has an outlet that they can share the information. I have a pretty loyal following on all of social media and LinkedIn, and so really just depends on knowing where your target audience is going to be, as well as leveraging the audience that a property or the city may have to reach their audience. So I like to cast a wide net, but also take a strategic approach in encouraging the vendors or the artists or anyone that's going to be in attendance to also share with their community.
If you were to, if you had to rate one versus the other as far as, the chance of success, would a new commercial space be easier to create the buzz, or would, the chance to reinvigorate a space that has lost its shine? Is there one versus the other that you would expect to be more successful?
Yeah, no, I think they're both have opportunity for success. I think it's, the story of the property, of the neighborhood that the property is in. But also I think it's collective, right? So, I would hope that in an area that's like a downtown walkable community that maybe has some vacancy, that we could corral a couple of those property owners to come together for maybe a community improvement district or to all chip in. In fact, my team and I pitched not too long ago on a downtown walkable community where there are 7 major property owners, and unfortunately, all of them have vacant spaces. So while you might be an investor and you own a property, that doesn't mean you know how to be a landlord. And so we've been brought in to help work with them so that way we could collectively bring everyone together so that there's not 3 pizza shops, there's not 4 bakeries, that there's enough love to go around, that if we all work together and come up with a merchandise plan, then we can target those tenants specifically in order to bring some variety to that community. So I do think that there's an element of collaboration that really should come together, whether it's an existing space or a new space. A lot of times on the new space, on how they're financed, they might have a pretty strong marketing budget set aside, because what I find is that it's not often a single use asset. Most of the time, people are coming in and doing mixed use. And so whether it's an office or residential that's leading the charge from a financing perspective, and they're doing retail at the base of it. Retail, unfortunately, while I feel it's the heart of every project, it doesn't mean that retail needs to go everywhere. I do feel like the term mixed use has been abused a little bit, and that people think that they need mixed use everywhere, and they really don't. I am very much about like that, the mirror effect, right? If you have a main street and you've got retail shops, restaurants on both sides, that energy from those patios and people gathering will bounce off of each other. But if one side is patios facing into a loading dock or a garage, all that energy sadly dissipates because it's not being reflected from across the street. So I think that it's opportunities for success both in new as well as existing.
So you've been doing this for a while. Is there a favorite project that you've done that just, you know, hit it out of the park?
Well, that would be like choosing my favorite child, and I have two,
Yeah.
and that's a little unfair. But I do feel like there are some that are truly inspiring because they create an incubator opportunity. So for us in Atlanta, we had the pleasure of working with the folks at Chattahoochee Food Works. So we were able to position the operator for a food hall. We started with about 36 stalls. We ended up shrinking that a little bit because some of the operators wanted to get slightly bigger. So we ended up with 32 stalls. And we're going on, I think, about 3.5 years of that one being open now. And part of what we love about working on behalf of food hall operators and curating food halls is that you have that entrepreneurial spirit of those vendors coming in. And while I did go through the effort of talking with existing business owners to say, hey, are you contemplating a new concept? Do you want to come in here and try it out? Because here you are in this collective environment. We're helping to drive traffic. We've got 31 other stall operators that, maybe the line at the cheesesteaks is too long and they want to try something new. It's really been a joy to see and work with those vendors there to help them grow their business, some of which are now on to their fourth location, but they started in the food hall in 2021. So again, not playing favorites. I love all of my babies, but just seeing the evolution and the growth there, I think is really something to pay attention to. I also think it's important to let people know that as you see a vacancy in a food hall, it's not a bad thing. It means that maybe and hopefully they've outgrown that space and they've moved on to something better. But then it also creates an opportunity for someone new to come in and launch their brand. So I tell my boys that, the only thing you can always count on, things will change and you should just embrace it and go with it and see it as an opportunity. So I think, it's really been beautiful to see the evolution of food halls and see the continued growth of them.
No, definitely the truth there. Change is the constant. Oh, that's good. Hey, Edie, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second. As I mentioned before we started, by day, I'm an insurance broker. And as such, I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with their risk. And there's three strategies we typically consider. We first look to see if there's a way we can avoid it. When that's not an option, we look to see if we can minimize the risk. And if we cannot avoid nor minimize the risk, we look to see if we can transfer the risk. And that's what an insurance policy is. It's a risk transfer vehicle. And as such, I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation. Could be your clients, interest rates, public attitude, or public policy, whatever it is that you identify and consider to be the biggest risk.
Yeah.
And again, for clarification, while I am an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance related answer.
Sure.
And so if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Edie Weintraub, what is the biggest risk?
Yeah, I think for us, we are commercial real estate brokers, we're real estate agents. And so we are typically paid on commission only. And so if that deal doesn't come to fruition, that lease doesn't get signed, we don't get compensated. And so here, what I have to offer is my network, my knowledge, and my time. And so we are taking a significant risk every day in choosing who are the clients that we opt to work with, because We might put a lot of time, energy, and effort into deals that might not come to fruition. So it is definitely the roller coaster. It's not a merry-go-round. And so I know that our field is not necessarily for everyone. But I do think that we're able to mitigate it in regards to balancing out our portfolio with some consulting opportunities where we're educating brands as well as developers on how to go about creating spaces that ultimately will attract the right tenants that they want. So we do try to balance that as much as we can, but I think it's important, and we share with all of our clients that how we get compensated and why they should opt to work with us, but also realizing that we're investing in our time in them as much as they're investing their time in us.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Edie, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for asking. Our company is called Terra Alma. That is TerraAlma.com. In branding the company, wanted to keep it something short so it'd be easy to share over video or podcast, because my name is already very long. So that is where you can find us. We're on LinkedIn, we're on website, as well as all social media.
That's great. Well, Edie Weintraub, I cannot say thanks enough for taking the time to talk today. I've enjoyed it, learned a lot, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Sounds great. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.
You're listening to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CREPN Radio.